Hey, what's going on? You know who it is. You know what it is. All right, you guys. So I'm going to get straight to the point. Look, I've always believed this about Phil Jackson, and Phil Jackson just further proved what I was thinking for years about him. And basically his latest comments via, it appears he spoke to Rick Rubin. I guess Rick Rubin has some kind of podcast, and I'm thinking it's the same Rick Rubin that used to run Def Jam alongside with Russell Simmons. And basically, the thing is, and I'm going to simplify this. Basically, what Phil Jackson was trying to say in the interview, he feel that the NBA or sports league shouldn't bring politics into sports. Well, do you mean politics or talk about certain subject matter? Because Phil Jackson basically said he hasn't watched an NBA game in a while because he feels they become too political, with Black Lives Matter and all this kind of stuff. And he said, and this came out of his own mouth, that he kind of makes fun of that kind of stuff with his grandchildren. And this is typical of a guy like Phil Jackson. Now, before you come with the same typical talking point, Phil Jackson can't be a racist because he coached black players. Well, he sort of had no choice but to coach black players because in the NBA, the league is like 75 to 80% black, depending on, who's on rosters, season to season. So that doesn't mean a damn thing. So you can save that. Basically, Phil Jackson, he don't have no problem winning championships via black players and getting all the credit as being this guru, which I don't think he's no real coaching guru. Phil Jackson has always been a dude that walked into a good situation with teams pretty much ready to go. I've always considered him what you would call a fixer. I mean, he's good at what he does, but him being a guru, I don't know about that. And by the way, he did not invent the triangle offense. Tex Winters invented the triangle offense, and he gets too much credit for that. You can make an argument that Phil Jackson coached 20, top 20-ish players of all time. That's at least in the top 20, maybe top 25 at best. You have maybe two of them or three of them that could possibly be in the top 10, top 15. I mean, this dude has coached Scottie Pippen, Gary Payton, Karl Malone, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal. Like I said, the players that I named, you can make an argument they in the top 20, top 25 greatest. Most people consider Michael Jordan the GOAT. Some people consider Kobe Bryant maybe top 5. Top 10 worst case scenario. Shaquille O'Neal maybe possibly top 15. So that's just real talk. But he don't have no problem winning championships. But you got to understand, there's always been this notion that black men are not supposed to have a voice, because the perception with black men has always been, and this has hurt us for decades, that we've been told and we've been made to believe, and society has been made to believe, that we shouldn't and we are not the heads of our household. Now, case in point, you notice whenever there's a tragedy that may happen to a person that's not black, if it's an Asian or if it's a Hispanic, or if it's maybe somebody that's just non-black or even white, they usually let the father talk and speak in the situation. But then in our community, they want the mothers to speak. And this is by design. They push us to the background. The father could be around, and a lot of times the interviewer will tell the father to stand behind the mother because that's the perception. which has hurt our community. Now, I can go real deep into that, but I'm not. But there's always been this thing: black men are not supposed to speak, or speak when spoken to, or when told to speak. And when you speak, you're going to speak about what we tell you to speak about. You are not going to freestyle your opinion. And they've always hated that. The biggest threat to society is a black man that can think for himself and that has his own mind. So to say that Phil Jackson isn't a racist or isn't a suspect racist, which I think he is a racist, because keep in mind, Phil Jackson is a repeat offender. He's always tried to sneak diss black people, from saying people have a low attention span and the NBA might be limited itself because of hip hop music and all that kind of stuff. Then keep in mind, he referred to LeBron James' team as posse, which nobody used that word posse. That's a slogan from like the mid 80s. You know, that's just real talk, to maybe the early 90s at best. And then now these comments. Now, keep in mind, Scottie Pippen also hinted in his book that he thought that Phil Jackson was a lightweight racist himself. And I think that's why a few people turned on Scottie Pippen. At the end of the day, people don't want to have these real conversations. You got to understand, just because somebody works with somebody and doesn't mean they like them or respect them. There's always been this notion. Like I say, people don't mind using black men and using black people to make money and profit off black people, but do they like them or respect them? Well, that's up for discussion. That's up for debate. And I'm not going to go back and forth about how you don't think Phil Jackson is a racist. Of course you don't. We already know you handkerchief heads and you Powdered Milk Village members are going to come making excuses for Phil Jackson's comments. You're going to either say it's taken out of context, or I'm race baiting, or you're being sensitive. But you are the same group of people that's crying about what color cartoons should be. You're crying over Indian Velma and Shaggy being black and the Little Mermaid being black and character from Peter Pan being black or another ethnicity. So you don't want to have that conversation with me. You will get destroyed. Figuratively, intellectually. So I'm just saying, I don't mean, physically. You gotta provide some clarity, on these platforms, because people will take what you say out of context and twist your words around. So, I had to give you guys some clarity. So, like I said before, I'm not surprised by Phil Jackson. I've always thought that Phil Jackson was a lightweight racist. You guys need to understand, Phil Jackson, when he's done coaching, it's not like he hangs out, in Vegas. He may go to Vegas every once in a while, but Phil Jackson takes his lily white ass right back to Montana or Wyoming or Idaho, wherever the hell he from, and goes fishing on his boat. And keep in mind, Phil Jackson is 77 years old. Okay. He's 77. Okay. At the end of the day, he had no choice but to coach who he coached. Because when he got into coaching professionally, well, that's what the league was made of. The league had become majority, black. That's just real talk, because for the most part, the best players in the world are black. Coming in there, he knew that. Not taking away anything from players in the NBA that are not black, but you just got to keep it a buck. But that's the thing. People feel like they don't have to cater to a certain group. People always feel like they don't have to be sensitive to issues surrounding a certain community or the black community. They love to tell us to stop crying and all this kind of stuff, but then they'll try to say you need to be sensitive to other subjects. Okay, if you don't believe there's no place in sports for politics, okay, cool. If you don't want to talk about issues pertaining to the black community, then get rid of it all. We don't want to talk about issues celebrating the rainbow community or women's groups, women's rights, none of that stuff. Get rid of it all. Okay. But if you talking about one element of it should be taken out, then yeah, I got a problem with that. And that's just real talk. And at the end of the day, I'm going to say this again. I don't give a damn whether you understand, care about, don't want to understand the plight of the black man. I understand it. And I'm doing everything in my power to try to fix it. And I think another thing is where black people go wrong. We need to stop thinking that everybody cares. Because they don't. And that's been proven time and time again. The same way y'all want to say, what about y'all group? What about us? The same way y'all say, what about you? We mean, what about you too? So, once again, not bothered by Phil Jackson because I always thought that way about him in the first place. Now, will Michael Jordan come out and say something? Highly unlikely. Michael Jordan doesn't speak on these type of issues because that's just who Michael Jordan is. And at this point, I would rather Michael Jordan not say anything. Now, if this story starts to make its way around, the internet streets, we already know there's going to be black people standing in line to make excuses for Phil Jackson and say, well, I don't think that's the case. Just like they did Jerry Jones, because there's always a sellout on speed dial. There's always a dude that's going to come thinking they could be the Negro whisperer and try to tell us to calm down or try to make us feel bad about having an issue with what Phil Jackson said and his insensitivity, and lack of understanding. But okay, cool. Don't expect Phil Jackson to understand. So don't ask me to understand what's going on with your community. Don't ask me to care. You don't care about what's going on with me. I don't care about what's going on with you. Take it however you want. But this needed to be said. At the end of the day, man, screw Phil Jackson. Yeah, I believe Phil Jackson is a racist. Absolutely. Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Anyway, it's your boy Town Biz, man. I'm out.